everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Hey, thank you so much for joining us here on our YouTube channel for episode number 921. Well, we are continuing on with our interviews of American Star finalists. Today, we get to speak with Mr. Cole Schock. He is going to be talking to us about how he became a artificial insemination technician for select sires right out of high school and got his career started spanning multiple states, and how all of this propelled him in to being an American Star finalist in placement. It's a great story. You're going to enjoy hearing about his passion for the dairy industry, and we're going to get that started for you right now. Cole, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Hey, congratulations on your nomination as an American Star finalist. That's pretty awesome.
Thanks a bunch.
You bet.
Pleasure.
You bet. Well, that is great. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it, and want to catch up with you and find out more about you. So are you in Salem, South Dakota right now?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. And I love doing these videos because I get to look at the backdrops behind everybody. What is this backdrop behind you?
So this is a saying, Amazing Grace.
Oh, okay.
And it's in our kitchen. So
okay. I just couldn't read it. I couldn't read it. I have heard of Amazing Grace, yes, but I couldn't read the whole thing. That's really cool. I like that. That's great. I get to see a lot of cool things doing these videos. Well, very good. Okay, so you are formerly of McCook Central High School, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
Graduated 2017.
In 17, okay. And then are you still doing work in artificial insemination and things like that?
Correct. Yep. So that is my primary job, is working as a professional AI technician for Select Sires Mid-America.
Oh, very good. Okay. We've got a Select Sires gentleman just down the road from me where I live in Idaho too. So that's great.
Okay.
Good for you. Okay. Okay. I want to talk more about that as we get into it. Okay. So do you live on a farm, on a ranch? Do you live in town? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I live with my folks. We are about 6 miles south of Salem, South Dakota. We live on an acreage, about 5 acres we live on where I grew up.
Okay. And so how did you get involved in agriculture and the FFA and all of that?
So my grandfather's dairy is 1.5 miles from our place. And when I was really young, that's where I went over and helped him. Started feeding calves, carrying buckets of grain, and just watching him manage the dairy. And that's what really drove my passion for the agriculture, is watching my grandfather day in and day out farm and manage his operation.
Okay.
The FFA side of things, going into school, listen to your dads and uncles talk about the FFA program, and then you get the opportunity to participate in it. It's really cool.
Oh, good. Okay. So what age were you when you were able to join? Was it middle school or high school?
Yeah, so our first year was 7th grade when we actually joined and started our SAEs.
Okay, so 7th grade. So you did it for a total of 6 years then? Do I have that correct? Well, I mean, you're obviously still participating now, but total of 6 years in school?
Yep.
Okay.
Actively.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. That is awesome. So while you were doing it, obviously you had this really strong placement SAE, which we'll talk about. Were you doing the officer team or other CDEs and things like that in addition to your SAE?
Yep. So I was on the officers team, on our chapter officer team for 2 years, my junior and senior year. And I participated in a lot of CDEs. My main one was either diversified livestock or dairy cattle.
Okay.
Dairy cattle evaluation.
Okay. And what positions did you hold as a chapter officer?
So my first year as a junior was a sentinel, and my senior year was a vice president.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. Good for you. So FFA for 6 years on the officer team and going out and feeding with Grandpa. That it's interesting because I think for some people that clicks and other people it doesn't. For me, I was the same way. The first time I got to be around cattle, feed them, work with them, it clicked. And I like being around cattle. Is that kind of the same for you?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Okay. Okay, very good. All right. So now somewhere along the way, you wound up do you work for Select Sires, or is it like a franchise that you buy or something like that? How does that work?
So I got hired on about 3 years ago as a relief breeder, and I had taken an opportunity to take a full-time position to go to Longmont, Colorado, and I ran a technician route out there on 2 dairies, and I came back with the company to South Dakota at the end of May, so I stayed out in Colorado for a year.
Okay, so the way that works is you get hired, you get a route, and you're an employee of Select Sires while you're doing that.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
Got it. Okay, so you did that. You said you started 3 years ago?
Yep.
And so that's right about the time that you were in your senior year or just graduating high school?
Just right out of high school, yep.
Right out of high school. Okay, so where did you get your certification for AI?
So when I had purchased some cattle growing up on our family's dairy. My grandpa passed away. Agreements still weren't held up, and I still had cattle there, and I wanted to improve my herd. So I called the local Select Sires rep,
Mm-hmm.
and when he came out, he was introducing me to AIing, and it was breeding season for beef cattle.
Okay.
And he was like, "Hey, do you want to come try some more and get more practice and get to know things better?" And I was like, "Sure." So him and I rode around and worked on the beef cattle for a while, and found a very passion and interest for it, and here I am 3 years later, full time.
Oh, okay. So when that occurred and you started getting that kind of that mentoring from the Select Sires rep, how old were you then?
I was 19.
Okay, so 19 years.
Yeah, 19. Yep.
Okay, 19, and you got hired. So man, I mean, you had just started AIing and got hired by them?
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. I mean, so I don't know how to AI. I've done it. I don't know if I ever did it successfully because somebody backed me up when I did it. But I never got certified. I never got proficient at it. But man, to me, it's a skill, but it's also kind of an art form. And, it takes time to develop an art form. But they trusted you and said, go out and get it. Go do it.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting at first. They said, "Well, here's a semen tank. Here's the cows. We'll see you in 30 days for a preg check and let you know."
Oh. No kidding. So so prior to riding around with him, had you had no practice, or had you done it on the dairy with your grandfather and with other folks there?
Nope. We were still using the bull, and we wanted to improve our herd. And
wow.
That's where we do.
So at that 30-day check, were you nervous?
Like I always said, I'm one bad preg check away from being fired. So.
No kidding. Wow. That's interesting. I did not realize that could happen so quickly. So very interesting. So you did that for 2 years in Longmont, Colorado.
Actually, just a year.
Just a year. And then a position opened up back home?
Yep. There was a dairy built about 30 miles from my house, and they're up and going. We got the opportunity to work with them guys, and that's where we're at right now.
That is great, man. Good for you. And so is this something, I mean, is the passion still there? You see yourself doing this long term?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And how's the development of your herd? I know you said you'd been developing it and you wanted to improve it. How has that been going?
Great. It's really awesome to go to and experience other people's operations and see how they do it and take all the knowledge in and see what you can make out of your own herd with it.
Yeah. So what are your intentions there? Do you want to continue to grow your herd and run your own cattle at some point? I mean, obviously you are now, but you know what I mean? Grow it, get bigger, and do all of that?
Yep. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always wanted to be a dairyman. Hopefully somewhere down the road an opportunity arises and I can jump on that deal.
Yeah, that'd be great. Good for you. Man, that's great. Okay, so you've got you had the 6 years in the FFA. Who were your FFA advisors along that time?
Yeah, so my FFA advisors was Mr. Riekman my main one, and then we had two of them in our later years, we had Tracy, Mrs. Chase.
Okay. Okay.
So,
yeah, I've met both of them at the national convention. Both very nice people.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Riekman is Terry, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, very cool, folks. Well, that's great. Well, I'm going to take a moment here, Cole, to just acknowledge a couple of our great sponsors. Everybody, of course, I want to talk about Powder River Livestock Handling Equipment, just the finest in large livestock handling equipment you can get. Developed out here in the West where I live, where we have range cattle that come in off the range once, maybe twice a year. They're not used to seeing people, and they do not like to be close to people, and this equipment can handle them. And I'll tell you what, they've been designing it for over 80 years for this type of cow, and if they can design it for her, they can design it for your cattle. So check them out. You can find them at powderriver.com, and let your local farm and ranch retailer know you'd like to see that Powder River green out in their sales yard, so you can buy the finest in livestock handling equipment as well. And then, of course, Lacrosse rubber boots. What can I say? History going back to the 19th century, involved in World War II, and great supporters of the FFA, with over $25,000 in donations through jackets and scholarships every year through the Give the Gift of Blue program. I use their Alpha Range boots on my farm here every single day, and I did for a long, long time before they were ever a sponsor. Couldn't be prouder to be affiliated with this great company, and we want you to be as well. You can find them over at lacrossefootwear.com. Okay, so Cole, I think we're talking all about what your supervised agricultural experience has been, because it's placement, working for select sires. Do I have that right, or is there more to the story that I don't know yet?
There is more to the story.
Okay.
When I was out in Colorado, I worked for Mile High Dairy also with my SAE.
Okay. All right, so tell me about that. What was your job there?
So when I would work for Mile High Dairy, I would get done with my route. This is also one of the dairies I bred at in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
So I would inseminate the cows in the mornings, and I would be done by noon, and I would go to the dairy by 1 o'clock and either fill in for a relief milker, heifer management, breeding, preg checking on the heifers, and moving heifers.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tried to get in on the hospital pen on the sick cows just to get learning experience of what to treat and how to treat them. But mostly my main goal on that farm was to help out on the heifer yard.
Okay. Interesting. Why was working in the heifer yard your main goal?
What's that?
Why was working in the heifer yard your main goal?
Obviously because they had, full-time milkers there all the time. Everybody else had their own job to do on the farm. When I came along, his heifer program wasn't at the most elite it could be at. When I got there, we were moving cattle by pens and by how many days of carried calf they had. And yeah, so that's kind of where I really picked up the slack on the dairy. Is I seen where we were lacking progress, and I said, hey, well, I'm here. I can help you out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now you've been out of high school since 2017 and working full time. Am I understanding that correctly?
There is a little window in there where I did go to school.
Okay.
Wasn't much, but then I came back to the family farm, helped out there a little bit, and then got this opportunity with Select. Moved out to Colorado for a year.
Okay.
And
so when that's the case, you're maintaining your record book. I mean, obviously you're being recognized as a national finalist here, so you're maintaining the record book. So how does that work when you go to work full time and you're no longer obtaining an education?
It gets very crammed sometimes with trying to make sure everything gets recorded. I guess just working full time is, I've always had a drive to work really hard, and so it kind of comes natural to me to work, and so.
Well, I admire it. I mean, you've got a skill set that I don't have, and like I said, I think it's an art form, and I think it's going to take you far. No worries about that at all. I'm just wondering how the logistics of it work. Do you just continue to communicate like with Mr. Riekman when it comes to your record book and continue to push and compete at this national level?
Yeah, so when about middle of August, he said, hey, do you want to apply for the American Star finalist?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, send my application out there, and was communicating with him from bringing all my records up from 7th grade till senior year in high school, and then adding the hours I worked, was quite interesting, especially being 12 hours away from home and trying to get all this paperwork done and sent in, and everything's Zoom now. So everything, you don't really get much time.
Yeah, no kidding. And so you had to compile a lot of information. So what pushed you to do that? What is it about continuing to be involved with the FFA and to strive for this that pushed you to get all that work done?
Well, I guess, looking at the big picture and looking at how the world is now, a lot of people are against agriculture. They think it's frowned upon. With 4-H and FFA, there's a hope for the future. There's people out there saying the 1% of us that feed the world are telling the truth and telling how farmers actually deal with the crops and cattle and stuff. So that's where FFA really comes in at and helps that there's a future for agriculture.
Okay. Now, had you had some proficiency competitions you were involved in prior to this nomination?
There was quite a few Proficiency Awards I participated in. A lot of dairy entrepreneurship since I own dairy cattle. Dairy placement for helping out on the hours from Schock's Dairy. And then also going outside the box, I had some beef cattle growing up, dabbling in a little bit of this. And so I was kind of widely ranged in the proficiency area too.
Yeah, that's great. Good for you. Okay. Well, so now here you are, and you've been nominated for placement, and you're an American Star finalist. What do you think it is about your record book, or what you've done, or anything else that has stood out for the committee to say, yeah, he's one of the top 4 in the country? What is it that's kind of made you stand out?
Well, I definitely want to say the language barrier really set me apart from a lot of the competitors.
Okay.
In the culture world, the diverse in language is huge. Different cultures that, you got to be able to work. Everybody's got to be able to work as a team, no matter what background you're from. We all have the same goal in mind.
Okay. So you, I think, are alluding to the fact that you speak a second or maybe possibly a third language. I don't know.
It's gotten better. When I first started, I had no correlation with Spanish whatsoever. But with working with guys who can speak a little bit of English and sorting cattle, you eventually get the hang of the lingo, especially when you open the wrong gate and the cattle go out.
Yeah, you learn the curse words then, right? Yeah, I get it. Okay, so you're immersed in that world. That language is being spoken, and so you've picked that up.
I don't know if fluently, but enough to where if we have some problem, we can get it done.
Okay, and that was part of your application, listing that on there.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I could see how that would make you stand out. Absolutely. Now that's great. Good for you. Now, has there been an American Star finalist from McCook in the past?
I believe so. I believe the last 3 out of the 5 years, there's been one from Salem as a finalist.
Okay. Yeah, I actually think I knew that. So, but you're in great company then. You're in absolutely great company. Man, I will tell you what. Let me ask you about that. With that much success coming out of one chapter, does it raise the bar for everybody else? Do you ever go, man, I'm doing good, and then look around and go, I need to keep pushing?
The goal is always to improve. So, yeah.
That is awesome. Well, that's great. That's great, Cole. Well, I want to ask your advice before we wrap it up. There are students out there that when they're getting ready to be done with high school, they're still not sure what it is they're going to do. But with you, it was right there in front of you, and you're like, I know what I want to do, and I'm going to go do it right now. I'm not delaying a moment, which to me shows a lot of wisdom because you could go off, you could spend a bunch of money when maybe you don't need to, and now you're earning money, you're investing money, putting it away, whatever you're doing with your personal finances, and you're getting started, you're already going. What advice do you have for a student who is getting to the end of high school? They're feeling pressure to do one thing, but they're like, why would I do that? I know exactly what I want to do, and I can go start it right now?
Well, I would say to a lot of people is to find your passion. What are you passionate about, and then go for it. It may be a good experience, and it may not be a good experience. You got to try your passion and follow it.
Yeah, I do believe that. That is good advice. And if you know what that is, man, jump in, right? Because, I mean, you are going to excel. If this is something you love to do, you won't be able to stop yourself from getting good at it, from improving and becoming one of the best out there. It's going to set you up for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'm very blessed with all the opportunities around and the people who guided me along the way, too.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done it without them.
All right. Well, I want to wish you luck on your nomination. I'm very excited for you. And, of course, I'm sure many, many people have told you this, but no matter what happens, man, to be named as one of 4 out of over 700,000 students in the FFA is unbelievable. It's just phenomenal. So congratulations on that. We're airing this episode actually after the convention. It's coming out on the 9th of November. So when I do your intro, I'll know what happened. But as of right now, as we record this, we're still waiting to find out, right?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Cole.
Hey, I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you to Cole Schock for coming on the Off-Farm Income Podcast today. And hey, as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.